And Kenny, tell me a little bit about the kind of gestation of the project then. You're not the scriptwriter, you're the director in this, so what state was the script in when you first saw it?
The script came to me kind of fairly well formed. It was about 80 or 90 pages long when I got involved. It eventually went up to about 110, 115. And it was just through a script editor friend who knew the writer, a guy called Hugh Ellis from Derbyshire. It's his first screenplay. He got a job writing for the Bill years ago and got sacked because they didn't think he was very good. You know? So they couldn't get him and he couldn't get them, and thank God for that. It was quite funny. We were halfway through the filming and in between takes, Robert was listening to his iPod one day. And I said, what are you listening to? He says, Bob Dylan, Time Out of Mind. I says, Jesus, I've been listening to that like mad all the time, driving all the way to Derby and back. Yeah. And we were actually, independently, we were listening to exactly the same song.
I know.
You know, which was just tonally kind of, in the kind of, if I could have afforded that, I suppose.
There's just something about that. If anybody doesn't know that album, Time Out of Mind, Dylan, that came out on, that actually was released on September the 11th when the Twin Towers got hit. So it's got a kind of resonance just because of that alone. But what you got in that album was a man who's like at the end of his life, almost, and sort of talking eloquently and very, very, very clearly about these things that frighten him, I guess. So that seemed, strangely enough, we were both listening to the same thing.
It was very interesting.
I wondered, did the different characters in different time frames, did you get together in that way, or did you consult with the people that were playing the same character at different ages?
I met with the lads that were going to play the younger Sean, and I deliberately didn't ask for any. A lot of the stuff, am I right in thinking, Kenny, most of the stuff was shot before I arrived, most of the younger stuff, and I deliberately didn't ask for any of it. I didn't want to get my mind caught in this, like, let's mimic this, or let's, there was enough. I'd met the middle Sean. Yes, Sean. That's one. I'm confused that he's called Sean. I'd met Sean and I just studied him. I just watched the way he moved, the way his head dropped a lot. First, it's difficult. It's difficult initially because obviously, I've got a wife and 3 children, and a nice house in the West End, and things are great, But it wasn't always like that, and I've always been able to do that in my career. I hope I've always been able to look back the way and think, right, I remember how things were. I remember way beyond even started acting, when I was, poorer than poor. And my heart always goes out to people that are in that circumstance. I sympathise and empathise probably too much at times with people for that walk of life.
I'm not too familiar with a lot of I take it you're on a low budget. I've been listening to make films, but I've got similar experience to Robert, and the film itself, and totally in everything, in every aspect in it. It mirrors my own experiences, and I just thought it was incredible. And I just think, to working on a small budget, that person was asking how long is it taking to make, 3 or 4 years, but was it 2 or 3 years, whatever. I just think that's exceptional, because it really affected me so much. No, for sort of a sympathetic point of view that these things happen to me, but in my own sort of what I seen in it, what I read out it, and I just thought it was incredible,
That's brilliant.
Without being so personal,
That's the reason why you make it. That's the reason why we make it.
And it was I really thought it was really good, and I think surely I can get the Palme d'Or or something, maybe the Golden Globe. Thank you.
When we went to a school to audition, 1,100 pupils, and we said, we're making this film, we want some young fellas to be in it, can we audition? And the head teacher says, nobody here will be interested. I said, but it's a feature film. And we had to go to the education department to force them to let us audition, the kids, to be in the film. And one young guy, he was on an S form for Chesterfield, centre forward, smoked like a chimney, never went to the school, and he used to come out with us, so we gave him a job taking the tea round, and he was delighted with his wee orange jacket and all that stuff. And he said to me, Kenny, how much does a film like this cost? And I said, well, it costs about £1.2 million. And he went, what, here in Bolsover? Fuck off. But he couldn't believe, what is interesting is he couldn't believe that someone was spending that amount of money on a place that was so rubbish. And that's a dangerous place. That's a dangerous place to get to, because obviously, as the characters show, they're incredibly talented, multi-layered human beings with an ability to imagine and function as normal human beings under great circumstances with great dignity.
The headmaster of the school, did he get a kick in the bum off the Education Authority? No, I mean, seriously, he should have. Do you know if anything happened to him with that attitude towards his pupils?
Bearing in mind that there is a kind of true story connected up to this, what are your feelings towards that character?
Well,
we talked about it being non-judgmental.
I tell you, because we were auditioning in schools all around the area, we were doing a kind of unofficial survey. And it was just interesting to dip into, and Bolsover is a kind of epicentre of that sort of thing. Just down the road was, that's where the mine workers union split. So you're right in the eye of the storm there. But just over the hill in Matlock, still in Derbyshire, but in Matlock is a beautiful Victorian spa town. Only 10 miles over the hill. You go to the school there and you say to the drama teacher, we're going to audition some kids for the film. How many do you want? When do you want them? And, you ask for 10 and she brings 42 in a bus that she's just hired because she just happens to, And what's interesting is you go back over that hill and I swear it's like entering a different country. And there's no border, there's no flag, but you just go into something else. You don't rip the economic base out of a community, and it's the same in Glasgow, without creating havoc amongst people on a kind of smaller level. I spoke to one guy who was, he was just kind of leaning across his fence one day, and I think he thought it was from the council. I was doing my camera script and all that, and and he said this used to be a great working class community, with all its attendant problems and all that, but. He says that, it was almost full employment. The women were even working at the mine as well. And he says the kids used to get brought up and now they get dragged up. You've got this kind of mini microeconomic system that relies totally on disability allowance and prescription drugs. That's the kind of currency of that area, and it's just incredible to see it kind of collapsing. I mean, some of the poverty that we came across down there was unbelievable. You wouldn't even believe it. It was just beyond belief, really. And there's places in Glasgow where people have it really tough. But I was genuinely shocked at what folk were doing, and it's the land that time forgot. People. It's just that the world has moved on. And that's kind of stagnating there. The flip side of that, auditioning, we eventually got into auditioning in that school. And of course I had these 4 young strapping lads who are all kind of sons of miners. So I said, let's do a wee improvisation. I said, let's say that he's a bully, he's been bullying your brother, and you have to get his lunch money back off him. I said, now don't hit each other. I'll just turn on my camera and I just want to hear what your pattern is when you do it. And the guy says, do you want me to go? I says, go, and he just went. And he decked the guy. He knocked him out, and I had my camera and I thought, it was like Sonny Liston, right? And I looked at the teacher as if because I thought, it's been so hard to get in this school, they're going to take us with a collar and throw us back out. I looked at the teacher and the teacher went like this. Aye. And I thought, this is mad. It's like the Wild West here,